Alright, re-rolling. What is it? That it doesn't go to that until not the first time it's introduced at the beginning of the first movement. So, anyways, I'm back at MSM for my fall semester of my senior year, and that's some of Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony from the first movement. And what I want to talk about today is the differences between the oboe solo and the bassoon solo of the second movement, primarily harmonically. Yeah, the Fourth Symphony is a very emotional piece. And oh, before I forget, I'll probably be using some kind of theory-ish jargon throughout it. Um, and when I think about theory and talk about theory, it's kind of a mix of classical terminology, jazz terminology, and now some early music terminology. If ever I say six, that's because that's the figured bass version of a first inversion. So this symphony, well, I won't turn this into a history video, but it was composed by Tchaikovsky at a very, very emotional moment of his life, and I think you can see that in the music. I think it's a very programmatic work, which means that it's like based on a story, kind of. I won't explain that too much right now. So the first movement's very, very deep into this darkness and just kind of showing what it is. It's presenting what it is he's going through, you know. And then the second movement, I think, is where the change happens. That's where you see how he deals with it, sort of, or how he's able to get past it. Because the third movement is it's this pizzicato thing. Maybe he's a bit buzzed with friends at this point. And then the last movement's really you all know that. Yeah. So much happens in the second movement, and us double reed players have a very important role of the entire symphony, because the oboe solo opens up the second movement, and the bassoon ends it with both with solos, and it's both with this primary theme. And then that theme gets contrasted throughout the movement with. So yeah, I'll call that like the A B. Both are variated on throughout the movement. There's also a separate development section in the middle, kind of after the that goes. That whole thing, and now it has this huge development section. Arguably, that's where you see so much happen. Really moves around, but then before and after, it goes back and forth between that theme and then so yeah, and basically the structure of the movement goes back and forth between those, and then with their own variations each time, and then you have this big development section after the, and then it goes back and forth between these, and then like right at the end, it kind of has this own variation on then there's like some things like clarinet solo for a bit, oboe solo for a bit. It's really like coming down, and then it gets all quiet, and then the bassoon solo enters. Yeah, so let's talk about the differences between the oboe solo and bassoon solo. So first I'll look at the oboe solo, kind of take it about harmonically and show what's happening. So hey, what is that? Yes, that's major. And a minor third. Oh yeah, when I'm playing this, the strings are doing pizzicato, they're just plucking. So, but I'm playing them long, so you can kind of hear it in context to the melody. So, but then it goes. Okay, so, yeah, tonic, 5, 6, which is minor. Well, no, sorry, it's major. It's in minor, it's major, I meant to say, but this is minor. And actually, strings, they do pizzicato, so actually, when the oboe resolves to major third, the strings aren't even playing anymore, so you never have that moment where it's happening at the same time. Then it's 4, 5, so again, 1, 5, 6, 4, 5. But the special thing about this 4 is that when we get to it, there's an add 6. Every time that in any key, whether it's major or minor, if there's a chord on the 4th degree and it's minor, I always look to see if there's an add 6, and in this case there is. It's even the melody. Now the reason I quite look for it is because I know that that is the negative harmonic equivalent of the dominant 7th in a relative key. And it happens all the time. Let's say we're in C major. Now let's take the dominant, which is G major, and the negative harmonic equivalent of that is F minor. 4 with the third is minor. So if I were to add dominant 7 to the 5, the negative harmonic equivalent of that flat 7 would be adding a 6 to the 4 when it's minor. So these are the negative harmonic equivalents of each other, so they can be replacing each other. Kind of the whole thing with negative harmonies, that's like kind of similar in terms of weight, but it's a different sound to it, which was described as a negative sound, but I won't get into that right now. So in the context of this, we have the 4 with add 6. So it goes from, instead of replacing each other, it starts with the negative harmonic equivalent and then it goes to the 5. But the 5 doesn't have the dominant 7 at that point. It's just negative harmonic equivalent, and then you lose the color tone, which is the 6, which would move to a 7, but then there's no 7. And then it's in first inversion now on the tonic. Just a 2, 5, 1. This is diminished. The 2 is diminished. And then at that point it's 5. So this is the negative harmonic equivalent of a 5 for the 5. So instead of going to C major, every time, well, almost every time, we'll visit that later. Every time that you get to this part in that theme, it always does a negative harmonic equivalent of the 5 of the 5. Yeah, so let's go through it. So 1, 5. Same thing happens. And then it changes the second time around. Still in 6, this is the first inversion. And it goes up to 4, and then it just goes through circle of 5ths. 4, they're all major until you get to the 2. So that's the oboe solo. It's simple as that. So when we look at the bassoon solo, the bassoon solo is unique in terms of there's a lot of things that appear in it that don't happen at all during the entire movement whenever that theme appears. So let's check it out, see what happens. Still pizzicatos in the strings, by the way. It's root position. It used to be 6. First inversion. B flat at the bottom. Big flat at the tonic. B flat. First violin, arc at the top. So, let me just play it through so you can hear what's happening. That's not it. I can do better. I should practice better. I'm gonna move on because I'd like to not do this in too many takes. So what happens there is it's all the same so far. You have that nice thing, which also exists with the tonic. Point it was like this, and it went to the 2, which was diminished. As you may know, 2s can often be replaced and switch back and forth with 4s. So instead of the diminished 2, a 4 is used. So this is the first violin. So we have a minor. The 4 is minor instead of the 2 that's diminished. But the thing is, halfway through the bar, it switches to major. Yeah. So, and the thing I was saying I was going to say something to pay attention to earlier. That's okay. So, but this, when this happens, this is the only time in the entire movement that when this theme appears, at that part, it does the proper 5 to the 5, so 2, 5, where it's major. Because every single time it appears, it goes goes to the negative harmonic equivalent of the 5 of the 5. But in this case, it goes to the 5 of the 5. So it's a bit more of a lifted thing. We've had development along this entire movement. And after this moment, it skips the repeat of the beginning, and it just goes right to. So yeah, I want to say when I do this next part, pay attention to the bass line, because it goes back and forth between first inversion and root position, so that you get this nice bass line. That's not it. Yeah, it is. Now instead of going immediately to just to it actually goes to 6 at first, and then it switches on the last 8th note. There's a bit of the rhythm to it. So I'll play it. I've cut it up a lot. Let me play through explaining a little bit. I keep making you listen to me play this. Sorry. And then instead of going da, 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 it goes right to, which happens halfway through the. goes. Now, that moving rhythm of the bass line at the very end of the theme does happen other times throughout the movement, worth noting. Yeah. Is that everything? And then strings go. And it's like horns and flutes that go like, which is the 6, G flat major. And violins go, and then the classical harmony calls that an augmented 6, and then it happens again. Violins, a little bit familiar, isn't it? Yeah, so that happens twice, and then the clarinet double P pluck from the strings, and then bassoon plays it. And then 3 times, 3 Ps now, the strings play the downbeat of each bar. And then bassoon releases on the second beat. So, with these differences, you can kind of look at it yourself, I guess, and see what they mean. Whether you want to take it literally to what was historically happening in its life at the moment, or just the point being that there's clearly some changes that happen throughout this movement. It's a very important movement, and the double reeds are very special in this. So, if ever you get to perform this or play it for an audition, go for it and think about what it means beforehand. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. I guess if you want to subscribe. Anything else I want to... No, I guess that's that.